Well, good evening, friends. How are you doing tonight? Welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here, and we have what am I trying to say? Uh, Episode two of Snowmobile History and Memories with our dear friend Midge Rosebrook tonight. Midge, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. Well, cool. And we've got a fun-filled episode for you tonight. Let's dive right into it. In fact, item number one is something Midge and I did. We did an interview at the Lancaster Motel, and I'm going to give them a shout out because they are very gracious about supporting us. Anytime we try to do any kind of historic footage, anything like that, they're always happy to do anything they can to help us. This particular day, they made their lobby available to us to do some interviews, and we're about to look at an interview with Paul Crane, where we hear about kind of the backstory. Do you want to set this up, Midge, about the backstory of how we all come to know Paul and everything?
Yeah, of course. I've known Paul my whole life, and he used to do business with Dick Monahan, who I worked for. And yeah, I brought up in Lancaster, and Paul is Lancaster native. So and his involvement with the snowmobile, of course, as we know, and we've talked about it, at the last time, was that the fact that he was a salesman for Timberland Machines back in 1958. When he was invited along with his boss Bob Bottoms up to Valcourt to try out the Skidoo, and that made him the first American to drive a Skidoo in Canada. And then they took one and they shipped it down to Lancaster on December 4th, 1959. And Paul is the one that uncrated it and put gas in it and took it out and gave it a spin. So he was the first American to actually drive a Bombardier Skidoo, which, of course, most historians will look at the Skidoo as the machine that kicked off the recreational aspect of snowmobiling.
Yes.
Because of the way the chassis it's a one-piece design. The engine was in the front, not in the rear. It just took off, and but Paul was on the ground floor of the whole thing.
Right at the very beginning.
The very
You can't
beginning.
get more beginning than that,
You
can
can't
you?
get any more than that. I mean, he went to Canada and drove it first.
Yeah.
Drove the prototype.
Sure.
So.
And this interview clip that we did with him in the lobby of the Lancaster Motel, we hear from his own mouth some of those stories and anecdotes of those experiences of being the first American to ride a Ski-Doo in the U.S. and in Canada.
Right.
So let me cue that up, and we'll take a look at that. Yeah, right here. Let's take a look.
My name is Midge Rosebrook, and we've been talking here about the early days of snowmobile racing and how Lancaster tied into the whole thing. It was the first town in the United States to receive the Bombardier Skidoo in 1959. And this next gentleman is the first American in the United States to ride one. And there he is, Mr. Paul Crane, my friend.
Yeah, my name is Paul Crane. I have the Crane Snowmobile Museum, and we have the Hall of Fame, Midge and I, together down at my museum. I worked for Timberland Machines back in 1958 as the first employee, and I was selling logging equipment, which were Bombardier stuff, for Bob Bottoms. And all of a sudden, Bob came out one day. I was the only employee at the time. Came out one day and he says, "We got to go to Valcourt with me. We got to look at something they want us to sell, maybe." So we went up to Valcourt in 1958, and it was in the summer or fall. And Armand Bombardier was standing on one side of me. I was sitting on the sled, and Bob Bottoms, my boss, was there, and had the wooden skis. It was a plywood front end, and it had a high back. And we rode, of course, everything back then was gravel. Now everything's asphalt. I didn't even recognize the place when I first went back up. But I rode it down to I guess it's called the machine shop, which was down by the river. It was all gravel. What they did is we run on the track, but they put a rod through the skis and had two wagon wheels on it, and I drove it down to the shop. And then somewhere back in December, somewhere around the 5th or the 6th, we brought in the first serial number, 1960, serial number 22.
22, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first one in the United States. And of course, Timberland Machines had places in other spots, especially in Ontario and everything. And they had serial number 17, 16, and 14, I believe, up in Canada,
Yeah.
about the same time. And what happened was, all of a sudden, we got it down here, and I had it, which I have pictures of it out east of Lancaster, where I live now, on snow. And that was the first time anybody was riding. And then we rode a pile beside the museum, you might as well say, in the fields,
Yeah.
with the wooden skis on it. And it was quite a thing, because people would stop up in front of the Catholic Church and, you know, what the devil's that? These guys out on the thing. So then in the JCs, I was a JC because I was young then, and I believe it was 62, we had one of the first races, which was in 1962, which we were JCs. Bobby Clark was one of the guys with me, and so was Larry Connery, and
Mike, maybe?
no,
No?
and it was, I can't think who the devil it was. There's 2 or 3 others.
Claude Reed?
Claude came in later. But we had a race there for kids mainly.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the race. And then, of course, in 63, we had the International Grand Prix. And then in 64, we had the true Kilkenny Cup Grand Prix. And, you know, it's quite a history of things on that. But,
And Paul and Bob Bottoms picked the cup up, right? Didn't
right, yeah. We went down to Laconia and picked the Kilkenny Cup up, which is now at the clubhouse of the Lancaster Snowdrifters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Timberland Machines purchased it for the
Yeah,
club.
yeah, Bob Bottoms came up with the money on it.
Yeah.
And it was quite a discussion about it. So Bob and I can't remember who other people were with me, but we decided, I said, big cup. And they finally did it with the names of the winners underneath it. And it really turned out to be, I think, one of the best racing trophies in the United States and
highly sought
Canada.
after.
And Canada, really.
Nice, yeah.
And then, of course, after all the races, we'd have the motel here, Lancaster Motel. They'd all come back here, and they'd give the trophies out, and, of course, have some beer and whiskey, because there
Yeah.
was a bar here.
Nice.
And
Everybody would party and have a good time?
I don't remember if they had hors d'oeuvres or not. I know they had good booze.
Yes.
But that's what really happened down here. And then, of course, in 64, there was a bunch of us that started the first snowmobile club, which is the Lancaster Snowdrifters in 64.
Yeah. Do I understand that's the first snowmobile club in America?
It is the first snowmobile club.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Just like the race. We're the first race, the Kilkenny Cup. We beat Eagle River by a week, I think it was.
Wow.
By a week, yeah.
By a week, wow.
They jumped ahead a little bit, though, since then.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we were, you know, as big a race as Eagle River was back then.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a factory team travel all the way from Minnesota just to race at Lancaster, New Hampshire,
Yeah, you have to be on the map for that.
yeah, I mean, you were like the big red pin on the way to race map, you know?
And of course, we didn't always have an oval. We used to have a cross-country race,
Yeah.
which Bob Eastman really did a job on.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that was around here.
That was his forte?
I should have brought that in way ahead of time. And then there were some of us that went up Mount Washington, and
They were the first to ascend Mount Washington.
and they, on snow machines, and it was very treacherous, because back in 68, somebody let go of their machine, and it went over it was a motor ski, went
Yeah.
down over 800,
Tumbling down.
it was 800 feet in the gully.
Still down in there.
I think it's still there, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, Midge and I got together and started the Hall of Fame, but I've always, you might as well say, since 1961, I had a 1961 Skidoo, and Bill Doolin and I, and Pearlie Whipple had one of the first ones. But Pearlie Whipple and I used to go up into Nash Stream and up Phillipsbrook. It was the first ones. Trappers were up there, because Pearlie was a trapper.
Yeah.
And we were trapping beaver, and the pulp piles were 10 to 20 feet high, and we could drive right up
Right up on them?
onto them with the 61 Skidoos. No wooden skis on the ones we had.
Yeah.
But we'd go up there, and he found quite a few places. But one day we met a trapper. Of course, he was on snowshoes the whole time.
Yeah.
And this is 6 miles back in the woods.
Wow.
So he's gone back quite a bit, and he says, "What are you fellas doing?" And he wasn't too pleased, and found out Pearlie was looking for beaver.
Were the trappers impressed by the snowmobile, by the snow invention?
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun. We'd done a lot of stupid things. Bill Doolin and I, like going down the Israel River here,
Yeah.
with the ice breaking behind you all the way. I mean, we really had a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And out where I live right now, in 1962, Bucky had the first 62 one, which was Timberlands, and I had a JLO engine on, not a Rotex. And we were out there coming back, and there's a guide rail on one of the poles just before you get to my place. And next thing we knew, Bucky was up about 20 feet in the air, hanging there. The ski got caught.
Oh, God.
So we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We broke trail over to Berlin, which was the first time. And that's why I little provoked, because the U.S. Fire Services can't use their land for riding on, but yet it was in their AMC book that the trail was up over Willard Notch.
Yeah, yeah.
But they really did away with that real quick.
Yeah.
They really don't want, it's mainly skiers and hikers,
Yeah.
AMC members, which
No
is...
motorized.
I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it's the truth.
No, I understand.
I can follow up on that
You can tell them
for
about, you can
anybody
tell,
that doesn't know.
you can tell them about the...
All right. The gentleman that just spoke here,
Thanks
I
to
called
Mitch.
him up one day when we wanted to do that DVD about Lancaster and about the Grand Prix and about snowmobiling, and I asked Paul if we could use his museum and have a bunch of guys come in and be filmed and talk about it. And Paul says, absolutely. So here's Paul talking about riding the Skidoo that came down from Timberlands back in 1959. And all the time he's talking about it, and you guys heard what he said about, you know, what he's done with the snowmobile just now. So then I'm looking around in his museum with about 100 vintage sleds that he paid for out of his own pocket, in a 50 by 100 building that he built out of lumber off his land out there in his own sawmill. And I'm thinking, you know, Paul Crane needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you said that, but if it wasn't for Midge, I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But the thing about it is, Midge was sitting at that meeting the whole time mulling it over.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden realized, hey, he's the first American to ride on a snow machine, and nobody knew that.
Yeah.
After the meeting, he says, excuse me, what I'm going to say, he says, why the hell didn't you let people know that? I said, I really don't care.
So anyway, one day I come down. I've got a 1948 Jeep, Willis Jeep, that I ride in the summertime, and I drove down to Paul's museum. And he's got a big shop right next door for his heavy equipment, and he and his son Robbie were walking across the parking lot. And I stopped the Jeep and got out, and I says, Paul, I have no idea how I'm going to do it because I've never done anything like this before. But I said, I'm going to try to put you in the Hall of Fame. And Paul says, Midge, he said that would be kind of nice, but he said, I really don't care one way or another. He says, I know I did it, but I says, no. I says, Paul, I said, if anybody should be in the Hall of Fame, it's Paul Crane.
Yeah.
I spent the next 3 years compiling all kinds of stuff and getting testimonials from half a dozen people about Paul's career in snowmobiling. And I sent them to the first museum out there, was the Snowmobile Hall of Fame in St. Germain, Wisconsin. And they sent an email back and said that, well, Mr. Crane wasn't a racer, and we do mostly snowmobile racers here. You should try the International Snowmobile Hall of Fame in Eagle River. So I did, and I sent some information, and I got a little email back from Mr. Tom Anderson, I think it was.
That's what there's
And-
one thing that you skipped too, is when you were mentioning the Hall of Fame and everything, there was, when Midge did this, the biggest thing was, a lot of the people that could verify what I did
Not around.
weren't around. So Midge had a hell of a time finding things.
Yeah.
It was just lucky enough that 2 or 3 of them, like Bert Moran, which was a truck driver for Timberland in 1958 even, verified it. And then Midge called Bombardier and
Yeah.
verified more.
Yep.
I just wanted to get that in there because he's the one that did this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I emailed Bombardier, actually, and I got a lady by the name of Madeline Hull, and she was a historian for Bombardier. And I asked her, I said, can you tell me where the first Skidoo came down into the United States from the Bombardier factory? She said, Timberland Machines, Lancaster, New Hampshire, on December 4th, 1959. I copied that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the, but I did this later. Now, getting back to the first email to Mr. Anderson, I apparently didn't have enough information, because he emailed back and he said, gee, he said, that's kind of interesting that Mr. Crane was the first person to ride the Bombardier Skidoo. He said, I'll tell you what we can do. He said, I'll have a plaque made up, and I'll set it on a tripod in front of our 1961 Skidoo that we have here in the museum. And I wrote back an email. I said, Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, Paul Crane's not going through the side door at that museum.
Right.
He's going through the front door.
Yeah.
So the next 3 years, I put him through the front door.
Yeah. Nice. And you worked hard to make that happen.
He did. Yeah. And we worked just as hard to get the Racing Hall of Fame for all New England and New York. We really did.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any thoughts on the early days of putting that together, and from him having the idea to the next steps to get the ball rolling? Or?
Well, of course.
He and I sat at my place for probably 2 or 3 months off and on downstairs with my computer compiling stuff that he'd done.
Right.
But you know what?
And
All the stuff that I compiled, it was Ed Stab that went out in my place. I couldn't go out. I was still working for the Ford garage and everything. I really couldn't afford to go out anyway. And so Ed Stab stepped in my place and went out for Paul. And Ed called me and he said, Midge, he said, I was talking with the board members. And he said, they told me that out of all the members that were inducted in 2015, when we inducted Paul, Paul is the only one that got the unanimous vote. And he said, they told me that it wasn't because of all the information, because you had less information that some of the other guys did, but you had the right information.
Oh, yeah.
And they said the information that you did send, there was no question in
Verifiable.
anyone's mind that Paul Crane should be in that Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's what got the Hall of Fame thing started with us, when we had the Grand Prix. And all those old guys showed up. And Paul and I got to thinking, you know, man, these guys aren't getting any younger. They're in their 70s and 80s, you know. Never got recognized. The Easton guys never got recognized. Herb Yancey from New York, and rightly so, is in the Hall of Fame out there. But guys like Bruce Dunham, Bob Fortin, Cal Reynolds, Paul Montang, Bob Martin.
Bruce Dunham and his family one year had 132 trophies.
Trophies. Yeah.
That's
For
incredible.
racing.
Yeah.
132.
He had 67 all by himself.
So there you have it. The interview got cut short. Paul Crane's phone started ringing, and he was struggling to answer it. But that was a great interview.
Paul's a busy man.
Oh yes.
He's 85 years old, and he still works on construction all summer with his son. Plus, he has that sugar orchard out east there. So, but his back bothers him lately. So I'm not sure if he's going to tap this year or not. He may not.
Sure.
But yeah, Paul's a busy man.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's great at that age to be as active as he is.
Oh yeah.
And that's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
the secret
We all
to
wanna be that
longevity as well.
I
Now,
think
while
that's
this
what
was
keeps you going is to be active like that.
For sure. I believe that, yes. Now, while this was playing, we had a host of comments come in. Let's take a look at those. We get someone on Facebook saying, good evening, guys, from Cleveland, New York. Good evening to you. Platkill, New York, regular viewer. Nice to see you. This must be Stacy and Art Fosler, regular viewers. Todd McMillan says, Todd from Maddock, Ontario, Canada. Thank you for joining us. Our good friend Ben Thomas, who just had a Vintage Snowmobile show yesterday. We're hoping that went well. He's watching from Carterville, New York. Midnight Rider says, love the sled podcast. Well, thank you so much. We love that you love them. Now, New Hampshire native, but I think he lives in Idaho now, Stephen Burdick says that sled, that early sled that Paul rode, serial number 22, can be seen at the New Hampshire Snowmobile Museum in Allenstown, New Hampshire, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That very sled
It was
is over there.
purchased back from the original owner. It was purchased back by Timberland Machines. They actually traded him a brand new 1966 10-horse Skidoo for that original Bombardier, and then Timberland's restored that. they had a bunch of guys out in the shop restore that sled back to the original shape. And then they donated, Bottoms donated that to the museum.
So early in the game, they recognized the historical significance of that.
Oh, Bottoms, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that was the first machine to enter the United States.
Yeah, for sure. It's good that they kept track of that.
Yeah, yeah. But, of course, last week, when I was telling people that they couldn't sell it. When that first, guy traded a woodlot for that machine. Bottoms took a woodlot in trade because the price was probably like right around $900, I think it was, or something like that when it was new.
Sure.
And nobody could afford it, so he trades a woodlot for the sled, and then Bottoms knew the historical value of that thing for sure, so he got it back.
Quite the story around that specific sled, and all of them too, but that specific sled too.
Yeah.
And we've got BCJ Vids in the house saying, love it. Cool. Glad that you love it. We love that you love it. Kevin Colhane says, good evening, Mike and Midge, just logging on. Glad to have you on here. Alan Gove says, good evening from Enfield, New Hampshire. See you folks this coming Saturday at Crane's Snowmobile Museum.
Oh,
and that's
good.
A great opportunity. Yeah, please be sure and say hi to us, Alan. Get a good look at our faces there on the left, and Paul as well, and be sure to say hello to all of us.
Yeah.
Looking forward to meeting you. And that's a good opportunity to talk about the Vintage Snowmobile show that Paul Crane is hosting this coming Saturday in Lancaster, New Hampshire, right there at Crane Snowmobile Museum. It's going to be his 10th annual Vintage Snowmobile show. So he's trying to take it to another level to celebrate that occasion. He's going to have some extra trophies, some extra categories, and a few other fun surprises. So if you're in the area, do not miss it. It's going to be a great show.
Good show.
There's the exhibitor sleds outside, usually 50 to 100 exhibitor sleds outside. And then you go inside the museum, and there's 100 plus sleds in there. So there's a lot of sleds, a lot of things to take in. And if you're planning to come to Lancaster for this from any distance, be sure to book a room at the Lancaster Motel. They do an awful lot to support this podcast and all of these historic activities that Midge and I and Paul are doing.
Yes, absolutely. The Lancaster Motel supports us big time, so we need to support them as well. As one hand washes the other, as Mike and I was always brought up learning, So
absolutely.
Take care of the people that take care of us.
Yes, they're a good friend of the snowmobile community, and they're good personal friends of ours as well.
Yes, very much so.
And Ben Thomas has a comment about that Vintage Snowmobile show he had yesterday. He said it went great, and thank you for helping to promote us. And he was there promoting this podcast at that show as well, handing out some DVDs and some AMSOIL samples. We thank him very much for that as well. Jim Holbrook from Vermont, regular viewer, says, great interview. Thank you so much. We appreciate your taking that in. Now, here we go. Awesome history of the first Ski-Doo sled. Great job, Midge. And this is from John Springer, our good friend John Springer.
Thank you, John.
And then Stephen Burdick says, I'd love to be able to trace the history of his 1961 tin cab. It obviously came through New Hampshire. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And then
if you had the serial number, that'd be the way to be able to trace it.
Yeah, if you do have that, Stephen, maybe we can, I don't know if anything can be done on the Lancaster end, but if it's possible, we're happy to try.
Yeah.
And then my good friend Dirk Seams is here. He says, good evening from Otter Tail Lake, Minnesota. And if you look at my personal Facebook profile, Dirk posted a video clip that he took this weekend of the show at, it's in Minnesota, Eagle Lake or something. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior night. I'll tell you that. I can hardly remember anything tonight. But he posted some nice footage from that show. And we thank him for that. So anyone who's personal friends with me on Facebook, do check out my personal profile. And I'll be sharing that video clip on a future episode of the podcast. James Whiteside said, this is awesome. Well, we thank you so much for that. Here we go. Elk River. I knew it was something river. But yeah, senior moments, they come more and more frequently.
They happen more often, Mike.
Oh, it's a scary thing. But yeah, so there you have it. We have, this interview with Paul Crane, one of the true pioneers of snowmobiling on so many levels. And
Mike, the word pioneer sometimes can be used pretty loosely for anybody that was involved in snowmobiling. But this guy, this guy has pioneer written all over him.
Yes, the genuine article. The real McCoy, as they say.
Real McCoy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's continue with that momentum. This is the perfect segue into our next video clip. In fact, let me remove this from the screen. I need to switch gears here. We're on item number 2. We were talking a moment ago how Paul Crane is hosting a vintage snowmobile show this coming weekend at Crane's Snowmobile Museum, 172 Main Street in Lancaster, New Hampshire. This is a video clip from the show in 2017. So I'm doing this deliberately to tease you into considering joining us this coming weekend over at Crane's Snowmobile Museum. It's a wonderful show, and hopefully this video clip will help to sell you on that. How's it going? Thank you. Excuse me. Thanks.
So what I did, he's like, all right, we're going.
So there you have it, the 2017 Vintage Snowmobile Show at Crane Snowmobile Museum. I have to make a note about this. You see a lot of blank spots there on the snow. That is because you see this pickup here. I was doing this videotaping a little bit late. People were already loading up their trucks and trailers and getting ready to go. So there's
Okay.
a lot of sleds that I missed. I just happened to get there late. This is my first time at the Crane Show, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect, when to get there, all of that. But certainly not my last visit to the Crane Show, I'll tell you that.
That's Conrad Rollins, by the way, Mike.
Are you kidding?
No, that's Conrad. That was his last show.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, talk to us about
2017.
Conrad. Fill us in on Conrad.
Yeah, that number 22. That was the sled that I believe that's the sled that my cousin purchased from Vicky. It was a 443 cylinder that he was gonna run in the 50 and over race at the Grand Prix.
Hmm.
And so he brought it to Paul's show. I think that was Friday that Paul had his show. And he was going to run it either Saturday or Sunday at the Grand Prix. But he ended up, he didn't run it. But yeah, I have a photo here somewhere of Conrad standing in front of that sled. But yeah, that's him loading that.
Wow.
Yeah.
The late, great Conrad Rollins. And he has been inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame.
That very year, 2017.
That was the first year. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. So that sled's in good hands.
Yes.
Yeah. My cousin will take really good care of that machine.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now we've got Bud Gordon here with his Snowjet, his Thunderjet.
Yeah.
He brings that to a lot of shows. It's always fun to see that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
In fact, if anyone was at the Old Forge show in 2022, he had it there inside the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
cool.
that's
We've got
very
some
cool.
comments coming in. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. Oh, we've got the serial number on that number Ski-Doo, the
Skidoo?
1961 Ski-Doo of Stephen Burdick's, 612384. We'll have to make a note of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, look into that. If there's
Yeah.
any way to look into that on this end, that would be wonderful.
And hopefully somebody's watching the podcast and may may have a collection of old Skidoos, and maybe they'll go out and look.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
See what their serial number is on them.
Yeah. And then we've got James Spranger says, good evening to Mike, Paul, and Midge. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. James Whiteside says, what an honor it was to be the first man from the U.S. to ride these incredible machines. Can't imagine the feeling back then. Yeah. When this is all completely new and wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then someone, John Spranger Jr. is saying, I like the Thunderjet on that wagon. Yeah, that's always fun to see at these shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then someone else is saying, wonderful podcast. Thank you, Mike and Midge. You are very, very welcome.
Thank you.
And David Lowry says, very cool, guys. Thank you for sharing this. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And before we switch gears, I just have to remind everyone that the next Crane Show is this coming weekend, this Saturday, the 3rd of February. It's always the first Saturday in February. This is at 172 Main Street at Crane's Snowmobile Museum in Lancaster, New Hampshire. And we'd love it if you join us. Midge and I are going to be there. Paul Crane, of course, hosts the thing, so obviously he'll be there. But it's a wonderful event. It's the 10th annual, so he's trying to take it to another level with some extra trophies, some extra categories. Wants to make it really special.
And I think it's supposed to be nice weather too. Not as cold as it was last year.
It was cold last year. Yeah.
No, I just got out of the hospital, and as you know, and I just couldn't make it.
Yeah, it was bitter cold.
It was too cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking of coming any distance to join us at this Crane Show, please give a call to the Lancaster Museum. I'm sorry, I'm having some senior moments tonight. The Lancaster Motel, our friends at the Lancaster Motel. There's a link in the description as well as their phone number. Give them a call. We'd love it if you would join us this coming weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
And Stephen Burdick says, to clarify, that serial number is the one that he owns. He's wondering about its past owners or who it was originally sold to. So any kind of backstory on that sled, And I'll pop that serial number again. It's a 1961 serial number 612384. Oh, yes. James Whiteside is saying any events in the summer. He's wondering that's the best time for him to travel there. What do we have in the way of summer shows?
Well,
Midge?
September 7th is the induction, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, is the 2024 induction for the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
other
don't
than
miss
that,
that.
I don't know what's going on in Lancaster for as far as snowmobiles go.
Sure. Phil Bell hosts one in September. October, I think, in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. And then our mutual friend,
In Pittsburgh,
Ray Lacasse, yes, in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. He does one in September.
yeah.
Both excellent shows.
Ray
And I'm
had
sure
me judge the last couple of years up there, and yeah, it's really nice up there because it's at the base of the Murphy Dam.
Yes,
You've been there, Mike, right?
I haven't. I need to go though.
It's an extremely huge earthen dam. It's probably, boy, I don't know. I dare guess it's close to 100 feet high.
Wow.
And that's what holds all the water back from Lake Francis, which is a huge lake. And you
Yeah.
can walk across the top of that dam and look down on the show. It's like
Yeah.
looking at like a bird's eye view.
That's something to see, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a nice spot to have that, really.
Yes. And then also, as far as warmer weather shows, it's perfect timing. This gentleman on the right here that owns that Thunderjet, the guy who's adjusting that trailer there, that's our good friend Bud Gordon. He does a fall show. I think he does two. He does one at the museum, the New Hampshire Museum in Allenstown, and then he does another one in Goffstown, a vintage snowmobile and mini bike show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's in October as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about summer shows, but there's certainly some wonderful fall shows in northern Vermont and New Hampshire. And James Whiteside is asking, is Paul there every day? We'd love to get a picture with him. He's not, but if you call ahead, you can usually make an appointment for him to meet you there at the museum. There's a link in the description to the Crane Snowmobile Museum. There's also a phone number. And also the museum is open year round. Someone's asking if the museum is open year round. It is. It's by appointment only. But if you get on their Facebook page or their website, you just call the number ahead of time when you know you're going to be in the area. Make arrangements with Paul, and he'll open the doors and give you the tour.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Anything I've missed, Midge, before we move forward?
No, other than mentioning Bud. Bud is heavily involved in all of this stuff. He puts on a couple of vintage rides. In fact, one last weekend at Bear Notch down in where was it? Just above North Conway there. It's that little town. I couldn't make that, but yeah. And then he has one in the Franconia Notch in March. First, I think it's like the 3rd or something, 2nd or 3rd of March. He has a vintage ride down in Franconia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's one of the people in charge of that New Hampshire Snowmobile Museum in Allenstown, New Hampshire.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
That's near Concord. He's one of the top Eastern promoters as far as vintage snowmobiles.
Oh, no doubt.
He's got his head in just about everything. He's a wonderful guy too.
Yes, he is. Fantastic guy. He made Ray's show up in Pittsburgh last year.
Nice.
Had a visit with him up there. And I'm sure he'll be at Crane's.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've
sure.
ever not seen him there. He's there just about every year.
Yeah.
And the summer that I put on a summer show in Derby Line, Vermont here, 2018, he came up. He brought a bunch of stuff from the museum and a bunch of his own personal sleds. And
yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, right into it.
Yes. Oh, and James Whiteside also says, thank you for the information. He was asking, if Paul is there every day. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's switch gears and get where we need to be here. We're on item number 3. Now we're going to look at some historic images related to Lancaster snowmobiling, racing, all of that. This is something that Midge and I did, again, at the Lancaster Motel. It was a different visit from the interview we saw earlier. But like I said, we've got to give a shout out to the Lancaster Motel because they're always very generous about making themselves available whenever we need to film in there or just need a place for an interview. Or in this instance, Midge had some historic images and we went to the motel to talk up these images. And we're going to see an image of Gilles Villeneuve, and we're actually going to be standing in the spot where that image of Gilles Villeneuve was taken.
Yeah.
Anything about this, Midge, before I roll it?
That year he came with that IFS Scarroux in '76. He cleaned up. He raced in 3 classes and won all 3 classes with it. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
It was they were hand-built sleds built by Gilles himself. And,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's take a look at that.
This is where the great Gilles Villeneuve picked up his trophy, right here at the Lancaster Motel back in 1976. He debuted a revolutionary IFS Scarroux. He took all 3 classes he entered, and here he is, getting one of his trophies from the Grand Prix Chim that year, Whitey Leonard, who was also the chief of police. So there's J.R. Tozier, and he was one of the top snowmobile racers in the East back then. Had several articles written about him in some of the snowmobile magazines, and he's got a Mercury jacket on. He raced for Mercury towards the end of his career, and I think he raced some of those IFS Skidoos back towards the end of his career. But when he first started racing, he beat Timberland Machines, I think it was at Jackman, Maine, back in the early going. And Bob Fortin went up to him, and he said, "You're running illegal." And JR said, "I'm not." And Bob says, "I'm going to have you torn down." So they tore him down, and they found him legal.
Huh.
And when they found him legal, Bob Fortin said, "You're going to be racing for Timberland Machines." And JR raced for Timberland Machines, and he became a great friend of Bob Fortin's, all during racing and even after. They were great friends together. And JR is now in the Hall of Fame. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame back in 2019, I believe. And he's a good friend to all of us. So there he is, and this is where he took his trophy back in 1976, racing for Mercury, right here at this bar. Here's a shot of Gilles Villeneuve running on the outside at the starting point just before the green flag dropped. And that's a shot of his IFS Scarroux. All hand-built. He did it himself for Scarroux. He was an absolute genius fabricator. And in the stands that day was Bob Eastman and Wes Pesic of the Polaris racing team. And they took very close notes as to how that thing was performing on the track. And Bob Eastman called Polaris. He said, "We got to hire Gordon Rudolph, who was also working on IFS sleds." He said, "This is a thing of the future, and in order to win races, we're going to have to do something like this." And in 1977, if anybody ever followed racing back in those days, they did their homework that summer, because they debuted the little RXL IFS sled, and it cleaned house that entire year. I don't think anything ever won more races, first, second, and thirds, is that little Polaris RXL.
That's awesome.
And they called it the Midnight Blue Express, and it all started with this gentleman right here in 1976.
Catalyst for the whole thing.
Yeah, he was the beginning. And what sled today doesn't have an IFS suspension?
True.
So yeah, it was quite an exciting time to be living back then. On the inside is J.R. Tozier, and just on the outside of him is Gilles Villeneuve on that IFS Scarroux. If Gilles hadn't showed up that weekend with that IFS Scarroux, this guy right here, J.R. Tozier, would have won just about everything, because he came in second behind him on a Leafer Mercury. So yeah, but that was the Grand Prix in 1976. Big names there.
Yeah.
Herb Yancey was running there. Ron Hall was running there. Big name Eastern driver. There's Villeneuve with his back turned. He always had a real high number. I don't think he raced the circuit per se to ever earn a low number, but where he did race, he won. So I don't think he ever earned enough points to get a low number. But I don't think he had to.
No.
Yeah,
because he showed up with his hand-built sleds, and he always won. So you have a number 1 deer booter, you win a race everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So that's
The proof is on the track.
Yeah. And of course later he raced in the Formula One circuit, and unfortunately that's where he passed away. He didn't buckle himself properly in the seat of his Formula One car, and it flipped and tossed him out. That was a horrible thing. We lost an innovator, a genius.
Yeah.
Villeneuve. Yeah.
The legend.
Ted Wynot, the flagman, and he did a lot of the announcing during the trophy presentation, and he was a class act. Teddy Wynot was very well liked by everybody. He never played favorites. There are a few people he probably didn't like, but I don't think he ever played any favorites. Everybody respected Ted. I worked with Ted at Riverside Speedway when Mike Beatty owned it. He was a flagman up there for a good number of years. And Ted was nobody that you wanted to mess with. Teddy ran the show, and if you didn't think he didn't run the show, you were probably loading your trailer.
Yeah.
So
Find out pretty quick.
everybody loved Ted, and
Nice.
there he is right there. There's
Nice.
Joe Villeneuve again, picking up another trophy. I think he won 3 Kilkenny Cups that weekend. There he is, shaking hands with Whitey Leonard. You know, I tell you what, folks. You know, I was a Bobby Orr fan, and a Carl Yastrzemski fan, and a Ted Williams fan, and you know, Mickey Mantle. But they didn't come to Lancaster.
Yeah.
This guy came to Lancaster.
Yeah.
You want to know how big an event Lancaster Grand Prix was back in the day? Very few venues were big enough to have the governor of New Hampshire come and make a speech. And here's Mel Thompson, 1976, coming to the Lancaster Grand Prix and making a speech. So how big do you have to be to have the governor of New Hampshire show up in northern New Hampshire in the middle of the wintertime?
Yeah.
You know, and there he is.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's the governor. If you put that up for a second,
Yeah.
the governor's in the middle, and who was on the right and left?
Governor Mel Thompson's in the middle. Lyle Hersom, who was a representative from Groveton, New Hampshire. He was also the voice of the Lancaster Fair every year for many years. And on the right is Whitey Leonard, who was the Grand Prix chairman in '76, and he was also the chief of police. And he was a big guy. You didn't mess with Whitey.
So yeah, thank you so much to our friends at the Lancaster Motel for allowing us to film in there. They whenever we want to, it's just a matter of making arrangements, and they allow us to do whatever we want to do in there within reason, and we really appreciate that. Now, there's a reason we did this pan across the lobby like this, because this media bar, that shot of Gilles Villeneuve, it was right in front of that media bar. This is
Right
where
there.
they used to have the award ceremony for the Grand Prix back in the late '60s and early '70s. Right in this very room, right in that spot.
Mhm.
And it's
If only
very
those
cool
walls could talk, Mike.
Yes. And it's a special thing to be standing in the very spot that Gilles Villeneuve, had that photo opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's
No,
another.
they were giants of the sport.
Yes.
There was no bigger name back then than Villeneuve or J.R. Tozier for us, for New Englanders. These guys were heavy hitters,
Yes.
and they all stood in that motel lobby at one time or another.
Yes. And that's one of the cool things, one of the great ironies. I don't know if irony is the right word, irony in a positive way, if you will, is you're standing on the spot and showing the picture of Gilles Villeneuve on that spot.
Yeah, heck yeah, yeah.
Which is really cool.
Isn't it cool? Yeah,
Oh, it's wonderful.
yeah.
And then there's another image I need to comment on. This one right here. Okay, so
Yeah.
Teddy Wynot, we've talked about this before. It is just truly just a bizarre series of coincidences. I'm very good friends with his daughter. Now, I showed this to her recently and I asked her, well, that girl on the right, is that you? And she took a close look and no, I don't think that's me, but it might be my sister. And she's checking on that. And if it is her sister, the one she's thinking of, this is the sister that accepted the award when Ted Wynot was inducted posthumously into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame.
That would be Darcy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she was Ted's shadow. She used to be up at Riverside Speedway with him all the time.
So that would fit then if she was close to him. It's a very good chance then that this is her in the image.
That's probably Darcy.
Wonderful, and I'm waiting for confirmation on that. And as I have that, we'll definitely, we'll bring it to the podcast for people to enjoy.
Yeah, Ted was a flagman for Riverside Speedway he started his career flagging over at Waterford, where Paul Belfay has a Waterford racetrack now.
Yeah, yeah.
And Ted began his flagging career over there back in the late 50s, early 60s. And then he just as the snowmobile racing started getting popular, there was big demand for flagmen, and Ted just automatically went over to snowmobile racing in the wintertime and flagging at all of those events. And then he still flagged in the summertime at some of the stock car tracks.
That's cool. So it was a year-round thing for him.
Year-round thing for Ted.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything else that you have comments you wanted to add on any of these images that we're talking up while I've got them handy?
Well, I can remember walking within a foot of the front of one of those scarules that was setting out in front of his trailer, Villeneuve there.
Yeah.
And I stopped and looked at the thing, and was just wondering at the radicalness of it with that IFS. And I was standing right in front of it. And I think Jacques, his brother Jacques, was in the back of the trailer at the time too. Jacques used to help him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about brush with greatness, huh?
Oh, I was blessed to be able to be involved with that whole thing.
Yes.
Sure. Just growing up around it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have comments coming in. We've got MD on YouTube saying, "Good evening, fellas. Good evening back. Nice to see you." James Whiteside says, "Awesome," and we thank you for that. Jim McCrae says, "That's great stuff, guys. Thank you so much." And Ben Thomas says, "Agreed. Love this history lesson." Well, cool.
Yeah.
Good deal.
And look at the crowd.
Yes. Good point. In the back there, it's just a sea of people right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal back then.
Big deal.
Now, this is a good opportunity, Midge. There's one of my favorite stories that you tell, and I'm sure you see this coming, about when the Team Arctic tractor trailer was late that year. You want to pick it up from here and tell that story? I love this story.
Yeah, that was about 70, 71 when the Grand Prix really started getting off the ground. The officials were waiting for Team Arctic, the tractor trailer, to show up, and so they could get the show on the road. And they wanted to get going around 8 o'clock or so, and the trailer hadn't showed up yet. So they get on the CB, and they got a hold of the truck driver, and they says, "Where are you?" And the driver says, "I'm stuck." And they said, stuck. They thought, he was off the road or something.
In a ditch or something.
And they said, "Stuck where?" And he says, "I'm stuck down here at the intersection." He says, "The traffic is backed up down Main Street as far as I can see, and they won't let me in." So they had to dispatch a state police cruiser down to the traffic circle, and they escorted this tractor trailer all the way up the left-hand side of the road, because the right hand, of course, was full of traffic. So here's this tractor trailer going up the left-hand side of the road and into the fairground so they could get the event going.
That's amazing.
That's how big this thing was.
And the thing that made me think of that is that illustrates just how big that was and what a mob that attracted to the town of Lancaster. And I think that year
Oh,
you said there was something like 15,000 people that bought tickets to
oh
see
yeah.
the races that day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if you look at the sea of people here, you're probably looking at, 10,000 people there.
Yeah.
And that's only just a partial view of, I mean, that there's a whole bunch of people in front of those sleds going up into turn one.
Yeah. And to have that kind of a crowd descend on Lancaster for a weekend, it's almost like a smaller version of the Woodstock
Oh my
situation where
gosh.
everything was just backed up,
Yeah.
It
Oh, it
was a
was a
huge,
wonderful thing for Lancaster to have that Grand Prix.
oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the sidewalks folded up, in the fall, nobody came to Lancaster. There was nothing to come to Lancaster for.
Sure.
And then when the Grand Prix hit, now people had a reason.
Lancaster came alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then James Whiteside is saying, and back when you got snow early, he said, boy, what a concept, snow.
Yeah.
The last few years, snow has been so scarce.
Yeah, we couldn't do the Grand Prix. If we wanted to do the 60th reunion would be next weekend.
Wow.
And there's no way that would have ever happened.
No.
We haven't had cold enough weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Todd McMillan is saying, first time viewer, and I love it. The history of the snowmobile. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here,
wow.
Todd.
Yeah.
And since you're here, Todd, we do this every Sunday night, and we also do another Vintage Snowmobile podcast every Thursday night at 9 p.m. So wherever you're viewing this right now, circle back 9 p.m. Eastern time, Thursday evening, and then Sunday nights for what we're doing here. Midge and I have at least another 1 or 2 nights of this sort of thing. And then I always do long form videos on Sunday nights. So there's always something here in this time slot Sunday nights, and we always get something on Thursdays. So yes, if you're enjoying this, please join us. We're very happy to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank Mike for doing this for us too.
Oh yes, it's my pleasure.
Yeah,
and thank you as well. It's a wonderful collaboration.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we've been collaborating for probably 5 or 6 years now, and it's wonderful for everybody. It's a big win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're into snowmobiling and the wintertime sport, motorized sport, then there's no better place to get caught up on the vintage scene is right here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then to support that, here we go. Here's a good comment. James Whiteside said he's made his girlfriend mad because he watches these podcasts.
Yeah. Oh well.
Well, cool. We thank you for that, and I hope it's worth it. And our apologies to your lovely girlfriend. We thank her. We thank her for her support.
It's only an hour.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, let's keep this going. Let me switch screens here. We're on item number 4. Now, you've heard us talk an awful lot on this podcast about Crane's Snowmobile Museum. And we're going to take a look at a video clip that I did. In fact, Midge and Paul and I were there back in 2018, and they gave us a tour of the museum. So let me cue that up. While I'm queuing that up, the thing I'm going to add is this is 2018. So as anything, change is constant with a museum like this. He's constantly adding new sleds, selling off sleds. There are also sleds in there that are on loan from various collectors. So it's constantly changing. But this is a snapshot of what was going on at the museum in 2018. I'm also telling you this so that to make you curious about coming in to see what's in there now, because a lot of the machines are the same, but there's a lot that have changed. That's kind of where I'm going with that. But let's cue this up and take a look. Today on VintageSnowmobileLovers.com, we're in Lancaster, New Hampshire at Crane's Snowmobile Museum. And our good friends Midge Rosebrook and Paul Crane are just about to give us a tour of the museum. How you doing, guys? Good. Before we get started, Paul is the first person in the U.S. ever to ride a snowmobile. Do I understand that correctly?
A Skidoo.
A Skidoo, okay.
Skidoo only. I
Skidoo.
wasn't the first to ride a snow machine. I was the first one to ride a Skidoo.
Nice.
American, and first American to ride a Skidoo
Nice.
in Canada and here.
Excellent. Not many people can lay claim to that.
I someplace.
That's amazing. Awesome.
I just start down this row here.
All right.
Everybody can understand what just by looking at them, what they are. So we'll go down this row here first, and then we'll on the end wall here, we have some of the clothing. Most of them are practically mine and the family that rode things.
Nice. So these are yours from back in the day, you and your family?
A lot of them are. I would say that 80% of them are.
Nice.
And at the end here is a Scatmobile, which is rare. It's got 3 real big bloom tires. It was made out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I met the guy years ago, and he was driving a Stanley steamer up his driveway, and I told him I just picked one of those up and I'm going to start a museum someday, and he said, I'm going to give you something, young man, something that nobody has. My first sign that was put on the factory. And it's a plywood sign. It's a little rough, but I was going to cut the bottom part off where it was rotten, but I just figured it would lose the value of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. That's quite a gift to receive.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Cool.
Then I got patches on the back wall.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Patches on the back wall. Yeah. And
See if I can get in a little closer on that one.
And up on the rack over here, we got some of the small snow machines.
I remember the kitty cat from back in the day.
Yeah. Then we got the 1926 Model T snowmobile, which is a foot narrower than the average snowmobile. And if you look at the running board, it says snowmobile right on it,
Really?
which is rare.
Right here on the step.
Yeah.
Wow. And what year was this, Paul? You said 1920 something?
1926 as the plate.
Oh, yes, yeah. Wow.
I usually give rides when the snow's deep. I haven't done it this year yet, but I will be.
Nice. Then some more mini sleds up top.
Sleds on the top. Then over in the corner here we have some more mini snows plus a couple old sleighs.
Nice. And then these are some of the early mass-produced ski-doos?
This is a 61 Skidoo with the wooden skis. This is a 61 Skidoo with the replaceable steel skis, because the wooden ones we'd go out in the field and we'd break them.
Huh. Wow. Now that first sled that you rode, was it similar to this one, or
Just like that.
just like this one?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was a 1960.
1960. Okay.
Yeah. I have one, but I haven't got it over here yet.
Okay.
The 1960. Elite. I sold those, and they're sold for $19.95.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That one has got 200 and something miles on it.
Unreal. That's in nice shape. And I think they stopped making those in, what, 2005 or something?
They started
The Elite?
2004 and 5, I think they made a silver one.
Yeah. A much more modern looking one. Was that the last year, do you know?
Yeah.
It was, okay. I like that TNT. The old silver.
Lux Nordic.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now I see a shift lever on that. Did that have reverse?
Yes, reverse. Yeah.
Nice. And did it have like a low gear for
No, that's just the regular.
just a reverse? Okay.
But it's mint. It's only got 200 and something miles on it.
Nice. A buddy of mine growing up had a silver bullet like that.
Then we have the 64 tin cab motor ski,
Wow.
which they didn't make very many of them. Then a 65 motor ski. Then a racing motor ski, which is a 634 Herc. Yeah. And then this here was a 500 racing sled. That apparently, so I've been told, the factory had it. Yeah, motor ski factory had it.
Wow. That's cool.
And then a Zephyr, which is all original.
Wow. 1970, yeah. I remember these Nuvics back in the day.
Yeah.
My father's friend had one just like that.
Then a pink motor ski that was made from a friend of mine for his daughter.
Wow. That is cool. You don't see those every day.
No.
It's got some ski spreaders on there too.
Yeah.
Keep it stable.
His daughter wanted it pink.
Nice.
And this here is a rare 340 motor ski bullet.
Wow.
And the 340 Sonic, Supersonic Pro sled. Then the racing Northway. They only made 21 of them.
21.
21
Wow.
sleds. Yeah.
That's a real big hood. Does that mean there's a real big engine underneath? Or
Yeah, it's a 440.
440, yeah. Nice. And this racing cat.
Then a 76 Snow Pro.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's one of the cooler looking sleds ever to be on the snow, I think.
And then the Husky.
Yes, yeah.
Of course, the RV, Ski-Doo RV that they raced in 75.
Nice. Those were awesome.
Then the Snow Cruiser, which was a Rapido 500, which, as far as I know, there's only 4 of those in existence.
4 of those. Wow. That's amazing.
There's one in New Brunswick, I understand. I've seen that one. And I understand there's one up in Peterborough where they came from. And I don't know if the one's still in New Jersey or not, but there was one down there.
Nice. We had one like this when I was a kid. It was the consumer model, though, not the Starfire. That was fast. Even the consumer model, the 250, was really fast.
Oh, yeah.
So there you have it. Crane's Snowmobile Museum, 172 Main Street in Lancaster, New Hampshire. Anything to add to this, Midge, or any
Well,
comments?
he's of course it's all changed up from this film, since we did that, and he's now acquired maybe half a dozen different sleds now. He's updated it. That Model T now is up next to the wall beside that Scapmobile sign. I talked him into moving it over there because it was kind of in the way of bringing things in and out of that back door.
Sure.
And so that's over there. And yeah, he's got several new vintage sleds in there now. So it's totally changed from he's got a black dot Skidoo now that he didn't have before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and he's got 1966 Scarule now. It's totally restored, and I think he said there's only 2 in existence. It's the first year they came out, and that's only one of 2 that are left, or something like that. I might be wrong on that, but
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's worth going to the show is one thing to see everybody's sleds outside, but as you mentioned, now you get to go inside, and Paul doesn't charge for this.
True.
During the show, it's an open house, so you get to go in and look at all of this stuff. But drop $5 or something in his donation jar that he has there to help keep the thing going.
Yeah, it's a worthy cause.
Worthy cause to have a place like that, so that you can see all the different manufacturers of snowmobiles. Back then, there had to be well over 100 different makes, and and Paul has, boy, I don't know, what do you think, Mike? At least 50 or 60 different brands.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah, easily. And
we just kind of went around the perimeter. There's still like the whole center of the museum.
Yeah, they still have that whole center full of sleds.
Trying to pan over to that right there. Look at that, all those sleds in the center.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then it's constantly changing. He'll add some new ones. He'll sell a few off, and there's sleds in there that are on loan from collectors and racers, and so it's
he tries not
changing.
to have duplicate.
Sure.
He tries not to have 2 of the same thing.
Sure.
I mean, he might have half a dozen Skidoos, but they're all different years, different models.
Yeah.
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 So.
And in case you're just joining us, this coming weekend, this Saturday, the 3rd, they're going to have a snowmobile show, a vintage snowmobile show right at this location, right at this museum.
That's right.
So there'll be exhibitors outside, probably 50 to 100 exhibitor sleds outside. Plus you come inside to warm up, and you can look at 100 plus sleds inside the museum.
And then they'll have pizza and hamburgers and hot dogs and things and stuff to drink.
The chili's excellent.
Yep. Chili. Yep.
And that food area is, if you look at the mini sleds on the far corner there that are up high, that's that little corner there. That's what that wall is. There's a little kitchen in there.
Yeah.
And you just walk up to there and tell them you'd like a burger or a dog or some chili, whatever it is that you'd like, and you can go in there and get something to eat and something to drink. And
right.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show. For my money, it's one of the best shows in northern New England.
Oh, I think so. It's best bang for the buck, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
between the exhibitors outside between the exhibitors outside and what's going on inside. And I don't even think he charges the exhibitors, does he?
No, he doesn't.
There's no fee to bring your sled to participate in this.
No. Paul is so good about stuff like that. But like I say, as a donation jar, and throw a couple bucks in there for him to keep the thing going. All of this is out of Paul. Paul.
Yeah, he does this out of pocket. Yeah.
Yep. And he still has to pay taxes on the building.
Yeah, pay for the lights
not
and the
nonprofit.
heat.
The building itself's not his museum's not nonprofit. Only the Hall of Fame.
Yes. Oh, and that's right. The Hall of Fame is in there too.
The Hall of Fame is on that back wall.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that corner there where we can. This is 2018, so there weren't as many on the wall at that time. But yeah, I don't know if I can. Oh wait, no, I don't know if I can find it.
No.
But yeah, the Hall of Fame is in there, and we've got plenty of comments coming in.
There's about 32 plaques on the wall right now.
That's amazing.
So.
In fact, our good friend here, Midge, our guest tonight, is the founder of the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. I've been doing that. I think the first induction was 2017. They've got an induction every year. They induct 5 or 6 new pioneers of Eastern racing, and it's a wonderful event.
I happen to think of it, and then I knew of a guy that might have a nice place to put it.
Yes.
So I made the phone call to Paul, and I said, "Are you sitting down?" He says, "Well, I can." I said, "What do you think about having our own Hall of Fame?" He says, "Let's do it." And the rest is history. That was in 2016. We did our first induction in 2017, and we just did our 7th this last fall. So
and it gets bigger and better and more wonderful with every passing year.
yeah.
And the one thing I always say about this, I know you see this coming, but it's wonderful to have this induction ceremony to recognize all of these people. But the other byproduct of this that maybe none of us anticipated is it's also become a reunion for this community. It's a
Yes,
place
it
where
has.
this whole community gathers every year.
Yes,
Past, present, and future inductees. This is the event of the season for all of us.
absolutely.
And
When racing ended in the early to mid 80s in the area, in New England, when it kind of came to a screeching halt, all of those guys that used to race each other every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday, they partied together. After the races were over, there was like a camaraderie. Really, they raced against each other, but still they made a lot of friendships. But when that whole thing ended, everybody went back to their day jobs and they lost track of each other. But this thing brings them back together again.
Yeah, just when they thought this whole thing was forgotten, along comes Midge Rosebrook to create
Yeah.
this community, this
Yeah.
wonderful community, and everyone gathers. It's a wonderful experience.
That's true. They thought we had forgot them.
Yeah,
We had forgotten them.
and the nice thing about it too is it's a very informal experience. Everyone is very approachable. If you see somebody, you're more than welcome to walk up to them and say hi to them, get a photo opportunity with them.
Oh yeah,
some
get an
questions.
autograph.
Yes. And you hear a lot of wonderful stories being told back and forth. Remember that time on the track and turn,
Yeah.
something was going on in one of the turns, and
Yeah.
50 plus years later, they remember every detail about that,
Oh
that
yeah.
moment.
Oh yeah. And then maybe add a little extra too to make.
Yes,
Yeah. They get
absolutely.
they get a little. They stretch them out a little better.
Yes. And I hope you will consider joining us this fall, September 7th, Saturday, September 7th, the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame,
It's
8th
going to be right
annual
there at
induction
that
ceremony.
museum.
Yeah, right at the museum, 8th annual induction ceremony.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about coming from any distance, be sure and book your room at the Lancaster Motel.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
do it now, because most years we book that place solid. So if
bring a folding chair,
yes,
because
you
it's
got
going
to
to
bring
be
your
an
chairs. Yeah.
outside ceremony. And so bring a folding chair, sunglasses, and enjoy the afternoon. And I mean, if you're our age, if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you can remember that era. These are the guys that you used to watch race every weekend
Yes.
during the winter.
And like the rest of them, everyone thought this was forgotten about. Well, guess what? It's not. And if
It's
you
not.
remember that and you have fond memories of that, this is where everyone gathers.
Yeah.
This lives on, folks. It's a
This
wonderful
is the history of
experience.
the sport.
Yeah, and it lives on. And
Yeah.
we've got comments aplenty coming in. I'm going to pick up where I left off. James Whiteside was saying, I've made girlfriends mad because he watches these podcasts. And then there's a follow-up comment to that. Ben Thomas said, earbuds help to keep the peace. Cool deal. Now, RG is saying he prefers the Huskies. I think he was looking at that one in the corner there. The let's see if I can find. It wasn't a Husky, but it was one of those. Yeah, right there, that yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. And Todd McMillan says, thank you from Maddock, Ontario, Canada. Cool deal. Someone on Facebook is saying Midge is a wealth of knowledge. Absolutely.
Well, I just grew up with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Right. Yeah. At the right time. I
grew up in Lancaster with all this going on.
Timberland Machines, all of their top drivers always hung out at my Uncle Dick's golf station, and that's where I was. And so I grew up with those guys.
That's
And of course,
amazing.
we traveled every weekend with a camper and followed them and watched them race. And
Yes.
and we Polaris team used to use Dick's shop, the golf station. He sold Polaris, so the Polaris team used to use that shop to work on their factory sleds during the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So there I was,
Right in the
I
middle
got
of
to
it.
see it. So, but thank
That's
you for
amazing.
that.
Yeah. Now, Stephen Burdick was talking about his sleds earlier. He said he thinks he saw his dad's dealership sticker on that 69 Bolin Sprint. It would say
Wow.
Andover Services. It says it very likely came from George Burdick's dealership in Andover, New Hampshire. It says, so cool. Maybe someone could confirm that for him.
Very cool.
We're going to be over there Saturday, so let's do that.
Yeah. If you
the
can, come on
69
up.
Bolin Sprint. Yes. Well, he's in Idaho.
Oh, he's
Um,
okay.
Yeah. But
All right.
oh, and then James Whiteside says, I dream about this stuff and it's sweet. Ben Thomas says, great looking collection. I look forward to visiting Crane's Snowmobile Museum. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, James Franger says, awesome show tonight. Thanks, guys, for all the information. You are very welcome.
Yeah.
Rich Shad is paying us a nice compliment, saying bucket list for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Bucket list to go to this museum and hopefully to the Crane Snowmobile show at some point. I know Rich is
Yeah.
out in upstate New York, but it's very much worth the trip.
Yeah, sure
Reese
is.
Fleury says, good evening, regular viewer. Well, cool. So let me remove this from the screen. We've got another video clip to look at. We are on item number 5. We're going to, we've been talking about the Lancaster Motel on all of these podcasts because they're very big supporters of this podcast and all the historic things that Midge and I do and the Crane Snowmobile Museum, and just a very good friend to the snowmobile community and to us personally. So without further ado, let's meet the owners of the Lancaster Motel. I've got an interview that we did with them. Let's meet them. Good friends of ours and very good friends of the snowmobile community.
Well, thank you, Mike, for doing this, interviewing these legends of the snow machine world, and the origin of the industry and the endeavor and the sport. That's great to honor that history. And well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Brian, and this is my wife Ruby. We're the owners of the Lancaster Motel here in Lancaster, New Hampshire, which again is the origin of modern snow machining in the country. You know, and we have had the opportunity and the good fortune to buy this property. It's been owned by several owners prior to us, but a year and a half ago in July of 2019, we had the opportunity to buy this property. And it needed some repair, it needed some love, but it was something that we were willing to undertake because of just what we mentioned, the history. This is a property that is a historic property. It's been a part of the community for a long time, since the mid-50s. And it was also important to the industry of snow machining. And so knowing that it was historic, knowing that it had a relationship to the community for years, and that it was right in the middle of town and had this connection to this sport, to this industry, it gave us the courage really to take this on, because there is a lot here. There's a lot to save, there's a lot to restore, and there's a lot to give back, not only to the town, but to the industry and to that history. So a lot of gentlemen that you spoke to today had a real history, not only to the town of Lancaster, but to snow machining, but to this property. So that was kind of a gold mine that we could tap into and be a part of. So my wife and I have lived here for 16 years and really feel connected to the town of Lancaster. And this is a way to, dig into the community, but also to give back to a town that we care about. Yeah. So we've done a lot to restore the property. We've done a lot to, restore it as a motel, but also as a historic part of the community. There's been many receptions and weddings and birthday parties and celebrations throughout the years that the community has had those events right here in this property. So saving it, if you will, is really honoring its rich history and honoring the community. And we felt that if we could actually do that, that we would be successful because it's tied to everyone in the town. So that is what we've been able to tap into, and is happening. We're starting to build momentum, not only in the community, not only in terms of the travelers that come up and need a room for a night, but also to the snow machine community. You know, they've had their Snow Machine Hall of Fame event this summer, and the reception took place here. And it was great to have all the old timers, if you will, reminisce about the times that they spent at this property. So that was exciting for us, but it was also encouraging because that's exactly what we want to tap into.
Nice.
You know. So how about you, Ms. Rose?
Well, you just said pretty much everything there is to say. No, there's always more to say when there's a lady on camera. Right? No, we want to be the premier event place the way that it was back in the days of the people that we've come in contact with. This place, when people come in here, they have such love for the place. There's always a story. People randomly walk in just to share what they know about the place, people who know that we've taken it over. One of the things that I think is really telling is that regular people in the community as well, I mean, it's great to have the snowmobiling community involved, but just regular people, all the businesses, very supportive. Other businesses, what can we do to help you? Can we give you advice? Can we point you in the right direction? Can we come down and like when we were starting the room remodel, 30 community members came out and helped us tear out the old carpet. And, you know, it was just, it's things like that that really matter. It shows that these ordinary people in the community, this property is beloved to them, and they want us to succeed because they're willing to give up their, you know, Father's Day weekend, Saturday to come and, you know, and work with a musty old motel. So, so what we've tried to do is honor that and try to make the place as keep the essence of it, the retro essence, keep the memories alive in the rooms, in the service, but also we've upgraded it, upgraded the Wi-Fi to the top of the notch Wi-Fi. We've upgraded the cable to the top notch cable and things like that, so that you'll get that warm, homey, retro feeling that all those snow machiners and guests in 1955 got, but you'll also be able to use your smartphone and things like that.
Nice.
So we want that to be a hallmark of this motel as well. Also, this summer we opened up the outdoor patio, and one of the reasons that we did an outdoor patio was we wanted people to gather with the local people in the community. So something really remarkable happened in that the guests would just come from wherever they came from. They'd be sitting out at the fire pits or just during the day under the umbrellas, and then local people would come walking their dog and talk with them and chat with them. So that's becoming part of the community again. That's what it looks like. It's when you have your guests from everywhere else coming in contact with what matters in this town. And what matters in this town are the people. So we were able to generate that just by, you know, creating a gathering space. So this is starting to become a community hub where, you know, we'll show you a little bit of a tour and show you our new bar and cigar lounge and what we're trying to do to offer something complementary to the other businesses in town. So.
Yeah.
Very good.
Nice.
That's great. That's right. So we have, you know, added, as she mentioned, bar, cigar bar, lounge. All the rooms have been renovated. All the technologies have been upgraded. And so you want the property to have and everything's new and clean as far as the hospitality side of it. But it still has a very clear nod to its history. And like you say, this is a property of the town and of the community. So that is what we want to continue to honor. And it gives back to us in that regard, the success of the motel.
Yeah.
And our people here who are part of it, our front desk people, our housekeeping people, this is when you come here, you're like part of the family. So we go above and beyond to accommodate whatever your event is, or whatever, if it's a one-night stay or you're staying a week, or whatever you need. They are just exceptional in their response to people, because again, we want people to come and feel the town of Lancaster. We don't want them to come here and just feel like they could be anywhere.
Yeah, didn't want it to feel like a corporate motel.
Right,
Oh, that's right.
or even just some other motel. We want people to say, we remember our experience in the White Mountains because we went to this little Lancaster motel, and those people were really awesome.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of that on our reviews with the staff that we have. And I feel like they're as dedicated to the success of this property as we are. So
Absolutely.
that's going to be helpful in the future, and it's going to always have a benefit for the guests.
No question, that's right. So it's great in that regard, but it is also, has a real hand on the history of snowmobiling. You know, that has been a big part of this particular property, and it was sort of lost for a period of time under a different style of management and a different focus. But now, this is important to us because we see the importance that this industry has to this community. And we have legends in this community in terms of that industry and in terms of that sport and its history. And so we are bringing this property back as, again, a central station for snowmobiling in the North Country.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
kind of our ace in the hole.
Right.
Right.
And you can snowmobile, we are on Quarter 5, so you can snowmobile right out of your room, literally park in front of your room and just snowmobile right out and head to wherever you want to head to.
That's right.
Pittsburgh, Canada.
That's right.
Yeah, however much gas you've got in your machine.
That's right, and that's a big, we talk about making this, bringing this back to the sport of snowmobiling. Well, those are the kinds of things. We're on 4 to 5. You can pull your rig into, we have a big open parking lot that can satisfy most of the sleds and their trailers. The doors to the outside, so you can park your trailer right in front of your door, as well as we have seasonal opportunities for people to have it's like their own condo. They can rent it for the season and have all their stuff here. They can leave work on Thursday evening, drive up, don't have to hook up, don't have to pack. It's all here waiting for you. We have parking space for their trailers in a secure area, so they can leave all that stuff here all season long, to the extent that they want to do that. They can do it a month at a time or all season long. So we've tried to develop some packages that do address the snow machiner, you know, to make sure that they know. I mean, being on Quarter 5, you can park here, fire it up, and head out. So that's the kind of thing that we.
You're home away from home.
That's right.
Right,
Yeah. That's
and then
exactly.
once you're here, I mean, we are literally like a few hundred feet. You walk to the edge of the motel and you are downtown. So you can go to the bakery, go to the brew pub, go to
The restaurants.
the breakfast place.
Yeah.
It's all right here, really a part of the
And
property.
you don't have to get back in another vehicle to drive somewhere to eat or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's all right here.
And the
So-
museum as well.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, and that's another exciting part of our location. We're literally a walk to the snowmobile, museum, which is it's a
Amazing.
remarkable
Yes.
facility. It
Over
really
100
is.
sleds.
Yeah.
Over 100
That's right,
sleds.
that's right. So this is all things snowmobile, you know. The museum down the street, the facility that accommodates all the amenities of Lancaster, on the trail. I mean, what more do you want? This
Yeah,
is the spot.
that's true.
This is the spot. you
It
know.
checks all the boxes.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So, very good. Well, thank you for listening to us, and
Yeah.
thank you for having this event and honoring the industry in your own way. Thank you.
Well, cool. There you go. Our good friends, Brian and Ruby, I'm sorry. At the Lancaster Motel.
Yeah. Brian and Ruby Berryman, they're two of the nicest people you're ever going to want to meet.
Yes.
And there's just one thing that's holding everything back from doing what they wanted to do, you know, during the wintertime, is a little 4-letter word. It's called snow.
Yeah.
The lack
that's
thereof.
the last couple of years. Yeah.
It's been awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's
been
too
awful.
bad.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing is, if you're thinking about a snowmobile vacation there, be sure and call ahead to find out what the conditions are.
Yeah.
But
And we're going to
even
get a
if-
little storm tonight, but we'll probably get an inch out of it.
yes. But the other thing too is you can time your visit around, you know, the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the first Saturday in September,
That's what we
or the Crane Snowmobile Show, first Saturday in February. There's also the Snow Derby.
Yeah.
You can try to plan it around some of these snowmobile events, so you can take in
Yeah.
as much of that as you possibly can, and
Yeah.
then see a lot of the history that's available right there in town, walkable from the museum, walkable
What's
from
nice
the.
about that? What's
the
nice
motel.
about that motel is, Mike, everything that they've done, they've kept it Art Deco. They've
Yeah.
kept it mid-century. The furniture, all the furniture that they have in the lobby and everything, they've kept it mid-century.
Yes,
So
it's an amazing retro feel.
It's as it was, you know, when it was built. So they've kept the flavor of the Art Deco mid-century type atmosphere.
Yes, it's a wonderful retro vibe.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, they did a great job on that place.
Yes. Now, if you look at the menu, you would get the impression that we're at the end of the podcast, and we almost are. But I've got one more video that I wanted to look at real quick, and that is the induction ceremony from 2019. I've got a clip from that. Now, Midge, by the way, in case you're just joining us, is the founder of the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, which is a wonderful organization that honors all of those wonderful snowmobile racers of yesteryear. We've got a comment that's come in, and before we look at that, here we go. Yes, James Whiteside says, awesome, I need to come out there. Great interview. Thank you so much. Yeah, and please be sure, if anyone who's been watching this podcast wants to go to the Lancaster Motel, whether you call or email them or show up, be sure and reference this podcast that you heard about them on the podcast. They would love to hear that. So anyway, where was I going with that? So I've got the induction of Claude Hebert. We're going to watch that. And the reason I picked that is he tells a hilarious story during his induction. So anything you want to add to that, Midge, before I roll it?
Of course, I've forgotten now what you're going to show, but yeah, Claude is he raced motor ski while he was here in New England for Rockwell, I think, in Maine. Had a motor ski distributor, and he hit a telephone pole and broke it completely off in 1969 here at the Grand Prix. Knocked the telephone lines and everything all down across the track, and they thought that he died and out of the thing, and he ushered in the danger of snowmobile racing for sure.
Yes,
he brought the fans to their feet on that deal.
Yes, in fact, he's going to tell that story from his point of view. In fact, let's roll that right now and hear it from his mouth.
Claude Hebert. Claude Hebert, racer promoter, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2019. Claude's exceptional racing talent in the early 1960s was noticed by the local Colbert motor ski dealer, who then hired him as their driver. He was soon invited to race for the Eastern Motor Ski distributor, Rockwell Incorporated. It was here that Claude not only became New England sales manager for Rockwell, but worked closely with the motor ski factory on engine development to increase horsepower, and was involved in the many rule requirements for racing. His role in production testing and new model development, along with a full racing schedule each season, contributed greatly to motor ski's success. When Rockwell Distributors ceased as a distributor for snowmobiles, Claude accepted the job as New England regional manager for Snowjet, now owned by Kawasaki Motors. Claude was soon promoted to as national international sales manager and involved in the Grand Rapids, Michigan, where he was involved in production testing, product development, and was involved in the development and promotion of the TOC Tournament of Champions. In 1969, on an icy Sunday morning at the Lancaster Grand Prix racetrack, snowmobile racer Claude Hebert, driving a 634 motor ski, got into a first turn skirmish with a Matic cat rider and delivered to the snowmobile racing world the first real glimpse of the element of danger to this new sport. Will always be remembered as the guy who cut off a telephone pole.
You know, I never saw a pole because I thought I could use the berm and get around. My three-cornered files didn't hold. So I was going up to the berm, and then I see all these kids and people behind the fence. I thought, oh my God, that's where I'm going. Next thing I knew, when I came to, I was paralyzed. I was blind, and I thought, what in the hell happened? Somebody grabbed my foot, and I could feel it. I thought, shit, I'm not paralyzed. So I was right between the snowbank and the fence. They pulled me out of there, I'm still blind. I turned my helmet around. I still didn't know what happened. The pole was on the track, and my motor ski's upside down on the fence. What? Well, I never saw the pole. That was the most amazing thing ever. And then they got my sled out, and I realized, hell, my brake cable was broke. I couldn't slow down anyway. You know? So that was my day. It's a pleasure to be here and to accept this on behalf of the telephone pole and lights.
They took him to the hospital, checked him out, he came back that same day and started racing again.
I didn't go very fast, but my brake cable was still broken.
Claude is still promoting though. Claude has been instrumental in helping us find these different racers and everything the last couple of years on the internet. He's all the time looking for people, and he's been very helpful. So Claude's always doing something for us.
Hey.
Thank Rick Simulus for the work he's done in developing the site. And that has brought together so many of the races and names from yesterday that we had all long forgotten. And all of a sudden, the stories they come out with and the memory these guys have is just unbelievable. Like, I think Bruce Boulevard.
Don't ask them what they had for breakfast.
Bruce Boulevard can tell you every race he was ever in and what position he was in. You know, who remembers that stuff? So, thank you, and for Paul Crane, and you, Ed, for all the work you've done in that. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So yeah, it doesn't get better than that.
No, that was cool.
Yeah, just a wonderful story, and yeah, he's a great storyteller. You know, it's great to hear that, you know, from his perspective, and he puts kind of a fun twist on it. And then we've got a few comments that have come in. Did you have anything to add to that, Midge? Or
other than you know, many of these guys that raced are also Army veterans, Air Force veterans. Claude was in the service. You know, Bruce Dunham was in the service. Calvin Reynolds was in the service. So these guys, they didn't just stay home and race snowmobiles. Many of them are veterans, and Claude is one. So
yes,
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. Hats off to Claude.
Yeah,
and he's a wonderful guy too. Just to hang out.
Wonderful
with him
man. Yeah, he came back to Lancaster a year or two ago and took me out to lunch and paid for everything. And
wow.
Yeah, so had a good visit with Claude. He's a heck of a nice guy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now we've got comments coming in. Jim Holbrook says, "Thank you to Mike and Midge. Great show. We appreciate that." And thank you to Mike and Midge for all you do for our vintage sport. John Spranger Jr. Well, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Ben Thomas says, "Thanks for a great episode, fellas. Good night." James Whiteside says, "That's so funny." Absolutely. And Ben Thomas says, "Great clip from Claude's induction into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame." Alan Gove seconds that. Great induction. Also appreciate all the time and effort you guys put into the best era of snowmobiling.
Well, thank you.
And that's why we do it. It is the best era of snowmobiling, the golden age for sure.
Yeah.
And since we've got a few minutes left, I'm going to play one more clip, and that is a quick interview, just a 2-minute interview that I did with Claude after the ceremony. Let me cue that up here, and just in case you didn't get enough of Claude before, we're going to get another little taste, and he's just a wonderful guy, as you'll see.
He's a good interview.
There, I started racing motor skis back in '64 when the '65 models came out. And little did we know at that time what we were really into. We didn't even know that this industry was going to be what it is today. I think none of us really realized the industry was going to grow the way it has. If we hadn't, maybe we'd have done things a little bit differently. But in any case, it was exciting because we were young, we wanted to go fast. And when the motor ski dealer in Colebrook offered me a ride, well, you know, what the hell, it's this sled. I don't have to worry about beating mine up. And then I was pretty good on the sled. So then I got an offer from Rockwell Distributors out of Yarmouth, Maine. And so they hired me, and I went racing and sales, and raced every weekend, and then salesman during the week. Time went on. I worked for Rockwell for about 10 years. In the first 5 years, racing and sales, and then after that, after the accident in Lancaster, they told me that I was too valuable to be on the racetrack. They wanted me in the office tending to sales. So from 71 on, it was strictly New England sales manager, and we had guys that were going to just race and beat the sleds up on weekends. So that was my introduction to the racing and to the competition out in the field through motor ski. And then, of course, Bombardier bought motor ski, and things were changing rapidly at that point to where Rockwell was no longer going to be a distributor. So I moved on to another brand, and never raced the other brands, but was always involved with the other brands in one form or another of promoting, developing, testing, and things like that. So the snowmobile industry was very good to me for 18 years that I was in it. So today I kind of look back on that with fond memories, especially with what they have done here at Cranes, that they took the time and the initiative to bring back the memories of yesterday. I think great job.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm Claude.
There we go, Claude Ebert.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful guy. It was a treat to meet him and to hear those stories. And yeah, he had a very important role there at Motoski back in the day, both as a racer and behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he worked with the factory on engine development and chassis development, and the motor skis and 70, 71, 72 along in there. Claude had a lot to do with the design and everything else with those sleds. So yeah. Plus being a salesman.
Yes, you're looking at a key person behind Motoski right there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then he went to Snowjet in Kawasaki and helped get the Tournament of Champions off the ground, that Kawasaki, where they had like 8 or 10 of the same sled. So
yes,
and they had all the top drivers race. It was like what was it? What was it? IROC. Remember the IROC series with
Race of Champions?
The Camaros?
Yes.
Same thing, only it was snowmobile. And Claude had a lot of involvement with that. So,
in fact, it's good that you say that, because you and I are both good friends with him on Facebook. We should try to get him on here on the podcast some night to talk about that Race of Champions and
I'm
everything
sure he's
that
got
was about.
Photos and everything of that.
To hear the backstory on that, because that was a big deal at the time.
It was a big deal. Yeah, all the top drivers were going head to head on sleds that were identical.
Yeah,
they had the identical studs. They had the identical carbide. The engines were identical as much as they could get them to be, and so that everything was equal except the driver.
Yes,
yeah,
a level playing field, so to speak.
Very level playing field. And that way it was, you could tell who the best driver was, because, they're all driving the same type sled. Nobody has an advantage as far as snowmobile goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool. So we've got James Whiteside saying, great show, guys. Love it. And we appreciate that. We love that you love it, and we love that you watch it.
Yeah.
And so we are pretty much out of time. And we want to thank everyone for viewing tonight. Thank Midge for being on and sharing all these stories and anecdotes.
Thank you for having me on, Mike.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always fun to take a deep dive into the history of snowmobiling, especially as it pertains to Lancaster, because Lancaster, in many ways, was the epicenter for an awful lot of it.
Yeah.
An awful lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, don't think I'm bragging about this, because it just happened to be. It happened to be the town that first took the Bombardier in, and that's the machine that kicked off racing in the recreational aspect of snowmobiling, really, because of the design of the sled. And I just happened to be there when it happened. So I'm glad to be able to tell people the history of it. So
To share that story for sure.
to share
And
that
yeah,
stuff.
it's the old saying, it ain't bragging if you can back it up. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
it
saying?
ain't bragging if you can do it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
we've got one more comment that's come in. Here we go. Ben Thomas says, "Our pleasure." Absolutely. It's everyone's pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, viewing
Yeah.
and bringing it to you. And yeah, it's a pleasure for all of us.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a wonderful community. All of the people that are in here making comments and viewing it and enjoying it, and the
Right.
comments, the questions, the engagement. You know, that's what makes it a community in my mind, is the engagement, because
That's
you know,
right.
comments and questions, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it furthers the sport.
yes, keeps
Yeah.
it alive.
Keeps it alive.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
anyone who was there remembers what an incredibly wonderful experience that was, and
Yeah.
it's
There was
cool
a
that there are
whole new
people
sport
still
at
out
that
there
time.
that are interested in keeping it alive, still have an
Yeah.
interest in it, and viewing things like this and thinking about it, talking about it, keeping it alive.
Right.
And yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Yes. Well, have a good evening, everybody. Be sure to tune in Thursday evening. And also, Midge and I have got another evening like this planned for you
Yeah.
next Sunday night. It's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
Direction, but I think every bit is special and is fun for you. So be sure and
Yeah.
tune in
Yeah.
Sunday and next Thursday as well for the usual Vintage Snowmobile podcast.
Right.
Everybody, have a good evening.
All right.
Take it
All
easy.
right. Adios, Mike.